Welcome to If the Public Only Knew, the show that pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to build and lead a business. Host Gary Cinderbrandt sits down with some of today's most dynamic CEOs, founders, and leaders to dig into their origin stories, hard-earned lessons, and the missteps that nearly derailed it all. These are unfiltered, no-hype conversations designed to inspire, challenge, and fuel your own journey. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
Welcome back to If the Public Only Knew. We're joined today by Dr. Oliver Degnan. Initially, I noticed Oliver focuses on executive burnout. As I mentioned to him earlier, when I was in high school, burnout obviously had a different meaning, but it's a real problem. The problem, I think, emerges when you get the feeling that you have to handle every problem that's out there, that there's no one that can solve it better than you, and you take on more than you should. Coming from the wealth management space and doing consulting work for some of the most experienced wealth management professionals out there, I see it all the time in the work that I do, where the best, highest use of a senior advisor's time is to stay out of the office, is to stay in front of their clients, is to do what made them who they are, as opposed to worrying about whether a dividend check got mailed out or a research report said the right things. So I'd love to jump into that as well. Oliver, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Good to be here, Gary. I appreciate it.
So Oliver, let's start. I start in the back. Here I want to start in the front. Talk to me about how and why successful people burn out, what the symptoms are, and how they realize it might be time to reach out for help.
That's a good question. So oftentimes burnout is misunderstood as being exhausted. That's not what we're talking about here, right? You can be physically exhausted, mentally exhausted after a stressful day, but that's not burnout. Burnout means that your relationship with your environment and the future outlook has a defect. And you basically no longer can imagine yourself being successful no matter how fast you spin those hamster wheels. And that's what gets you on what I call the burnout spectrum. Now, how do we get started with that? What happens in the human brain is actually that we try to predict everything in front of us. And we do so 1,000 times every second. We try to predict what's next, right? When somebody rings the doorbell, or I'm predicting to go to the door and open up the door, right? Or who's in front of that? I've tried to anticipate that. Same thing is with work. We try to predict constantly what the outcome is. The problem is when we predict something and we're not really in control of it, we get ourselves into micro stresses or flight or fight. And when we are in this state too often, unfortunately, we are sooner or later enter the burnout spectrum. And our relationship with our immediate environment becomes very poor. We're somewhat anxious constantly. We're not well prepared. At least we don't feel like we're well prepared. We're spending our time intuitively on things that we shouldn't be spending our time on, such as back-to-back meetings where you're just a fly on the wall, but you're really not taking enough time to step back and grasp the bigger picture and try to prepare strategically for, the future and being ready. So you actually see yourself in the future as somebody who can actually succeed. So what happens oftentimes is, especially in executive leadership, you start not seeing yourself as a success anymore, including your teams also. You look at your teams and you feel like they're not performing well anymore. There's no strategic directive behind it anymore because you have not taken the time to actually lead strategically. So you're just going more and more into the day-to-day operations, more in the execution part of it. Everything becomes a firestorm. I call it the firestorm culture, where everything is high priority hell. And the moment you find yourself into that, your future self looks no longer like a win. And when that happens, sooner or later, the end state of burnout is actually giving up, which happened to me, where you actually quit your job. It doesn't matter how much you make in the job, or if you don't quit the job, you can have some, really bad health effects, high blood pressure, and worse than that. And so you have to be very careful with burnout. But it's the constant fight or flight that you are putting yourself into, and that can happen to anybody, whether you're an executive or not. It's really secondary. It just matters really how you look at yourself in the future. And then based on that, what's your relationship with your environment? So you can tell by employees when they start talking bad about the company, about their supervisor, or they start talking bad about, a certain project that they're working on, or playing devil's advocate and basically saying, "Oh, this is going to be bad," and things like this. So you're already predicting a negative outcome, even though it hasn't occurred yet. But predicting the negative outcome, the mind doesn't know it's not real, and so your mind is making it real, and you put yourself in this fight or flight state, and that's not good. Same with things like taking on too many things at once and not having a good system to prioritize. That also, makes the future look unachievable sooner or later. And or when everything is high priority and you don't have a good relationship with your supervisor and everything that comes in is just, Oliver, do this right now. This is already late. Just put it on your plate, get it done. And you start rearranging priorities constantly and the teams don't have time to finish, which means you're not going to deliver on time. You're not going to deliver at an acceptable high quality. Again, you're setting yourself up, you're setting your future self up for failure. And you know that, you feel that. And it's that feeling that we're talking about when we're talking about burnout.
In that first job that you mentioned that you resigned from, that you were successful, did you recognize at the time things were happening, that it was going south on you? Did you have to get some distance and reflect on what happened to begin to develop a sense of the early warning signs of burnout? How did you go from the actual event of leaving it to recognizing what the underlying causes were, and then even more importantly, starting to focus on how to mitigate or manage those causes? I'm really interested in how that occurred.
That was a really interesting journey for me. So when I burned out was in 2018, and I was the senior vice president and CTO at IBM Watson Health for a company called Fitel down in Dallas. Worked there for a little bit more than 3 years, and then I burned out and I quit that job. It was a great job. It was really, really good. I had about 1,600 employees across multiple continents and, different organizations and lots of vendor relationships, great client relationships and things like this. So it was the job I really always wanted to have. But I just did not, see myself anymore as being successful. And I also knew that from a acquisition and merchant acquisition point of view, and Watson Health was a $4.5 billion merger and acquisition play. We knew that we had to right size, optimize at some point, and letting employees go and things like this. And I took that really to heart. And so in hindsight, obviously hindsight always being 2020, I didn't know I was burned out. I found out years later that I was burned out. And I did this through my doctoral studies here at the University of Wisconsin. And I did my dissertation on technology innovation performance, like what makes some technology companies more innovative than others. Now you can imagine that takes people. So I studied things like psychological attachment to the workplace, willingness to change, and even the relationship to politics and other things and whatever other factors that go into that. And at some point, I noticed that I read about 700 research articles on burnout and other things. And I read about 30 books on it, and I wrote my dissertation. And then basically in 2022, I realized, oh my God, I understand burnout. It's like, this is what happened to me. And it also turns out that there's some scientifically proven ways to get yourself out of burnout in less than 20 days in a way that you're never, ever going to burn out again, right? Which is what I'm teaching in my Never Burn Out Again course. But I didn't know at the time. So yeah, and I didn't even realize that I was in burnout probably for at least 6 to 8 months. I was in burnout and I just did not know it. And then at some point I just felt that relationship with my job and was no longer healthy for me. And
When you were hired into the
yeah.
Watson job, were you hired for the purpose of getting things cleaned up and packaged for sale, or did that change during your tenure there?
No, it didn't change. My directive really was to help merge 3 acquisitions together and sprinkle a little bit of IBM Watson AI over that. And so way, way prior to ChatGPT AI and things like this, what everybody knows now, right? The past 3 years obviously have been quite groundbreaking, but I've been dealing with artificial intelligence for 11 years already. And that started with Watson X and really IBM Watson. And that was true AI. So that was the directive to kind of do that. And I like that, right? For me personally, I like change. I like merger acquisition. I like, value creation, product design, innovation, things like that. And those things always came easy to me, and I like it. And I like to spend my time with people who also, thrive in doing that environment, right? Doing that and working in that environment. So that was not the case. I think what really happened towards the end was that the business case of IBM Watson Health didn't really result in the ROI that we were all hoping. There were a bunch of products that we wanted to build that we couldn't build for various reasons, and so the future looked, less bright, more grim, and things like that. And then at some point, we started looking at the spreadsheets and cutting people and letting people go, in the hundreds, and that's not easy. And a lot of people say, well, if you're in executive leadership, you need to have the guts for it. And sure, you need to have the guts for it, and there's a way to have the guts for it. But at that time, for me personally, I just did not see a future for myself in that organization.
So that was the environmental change you referenced before.
There was the environmental change, right? So I kind of responded to that. So my relationship with the environment became very poor. And because of that, my relationship or my outlook on my future became very poor too. And those are the two prerequisites for you to burn out. And as you know, and my definition of burnout, again, as I mentioned before, is burnout is a defect in your relationship with the environment and your outlook on the future. But I chose the word defect because I realized over the years that a defect can be fixed. And that comes from me. Back in the days, I was a coder. I was a software coder for many, many years, went all the way up the corporate ladder. And but I always like the word defect because it puts me in control of fixing my defect. If it wouldn't be a defect, I couldn't fix it. But I like the idea that you can fix it. And because it's a defect, you can fix it yourself. It's actually quite fast how you can do that in a way that you never burn out again. I used to think back in the days, Gary, that when you take a vacation from burnout and you come back, burnout is gone. But the problem is you didn't change your relationship with the environment yet when you come back. So the moment you go back to the same environment, you're right back in burnout hell. And obviously, when you go on vacation and you really do with burnout, and how do you know that? When you start checking your emails all the time. Did you miss something? Did it already blow up at home? Right? All sorts of things. And you go on vacation and you're really not taking a vacation from burnout.
So as you left and moved into your next venture after Watson, and I want to touch on that a little bit, between the difference between machine learning and AI, true AI. But in your next venture, you went in with the reflective knowledge and wisdom of what burnout was, or you just said, that really felt terrible, I don't want to do it again. Were you able to quantify what happened to you at Watson to prevent it from happening again?
Well, so what actually happened is on February 5th of 2018, I officially retired. And on February 6th, I got bored and I incorporated a company. It was more talent AI. And I ran that company, and it was quite successful, for a number of years. And then after that, I bought into a partnership with 40 Partners. And think of us as the McKinseys in technology leadership. So if you need to have a CIO or a CTO or chief AI officer that's up and running in 24 hours, you basically call 40 Partners. And I started doing that, and that really allowed me to work as much as I wanted to work as a fractional CIO, right? Because it's not consulting. Consulting is project-based. A fractional CIO is you're part of the executive leadership team, and you basically, negotiate how many hours you work and things like this. But you're part of the actual team with real fiduciary duties and things like that. So that was really important to me. And so 40 Partners gave me the freedom to work what I really wanted to do, not just chasing the corporate title anymore, the corporate paycheck, but really chasing the type of work, the type of company I will enjoy, and also the type of company, and ideally private equity, that where the future always looks bright, right? You can innovate, you can do something, especially with AI, which is what we did, and innovate in a way that improves the EBITDA, improves the valuation of the company, and because of that, they can now go to the next round and things like that. And that's really exciting for me. And this is a playground for me where I don't burn out. And the way I kind of situated that after IBM, I really structured everything and the way I spend my time in a way that it's impossible for me right now to burn out.
So a lot of it has to do with the fact you're getting up every day and you're having fun. You're,
Yeah,
you're
exactly,
living with
right?
purpose and
You
solving
right,
problems.
exactly. It's gotta align with your purpose, right? And I mean, my main mission, ever since I realized that I burned out and I found the actual formula to never burn out again, has become I want to get 100 million people out of burnout before the day I die, right? That's my mission. Boom. And whether I do it as a fractional CIO or whether I do it as a drdegnan.com never burn out again course guy, but I talk about burnout a lot on social media, especially on LinkedIn. And I have an amazing burnout test that you can take. You actually get a scientific burnout score that I developed over the past years. And there's over about 85,000 people already took the burnout test
Wow.
for the past few years. It's incredible the data I'm sitting on right now. And it's quite validating, but it's a real scientific test. It's not just one of those marketing gimmick lead magnets or whatever. This is an actual burnout test. If you go to burnout.drdegnan.com and you will actually get a nice, I think a 5 or 6 page PDF document thereafter with real advice of what you can do right now to start your burnout recovery. And I give that away for free. And a lot of people have
Fascinating.
taken that.
I'm going to take it when we're done.
You should, yeah. It's good.
I'm afraid how I might score.
Well,
Um,
then at least you know it. Then you can start your recovery, right?
well, I think also, I was fortunate in that I found something that I never really looked at it as a job. Once I understood what my role would be in advising other people, my age didn't matter so much. What mattered more was my ability to listen, understand, guide, and instruct and teach.
Yeah.
Because investing is not complicated. People would love to tell you that it is, but it's 99.9% noise. And if you can ignore that, the only thing left is discipline.
There you go.
And, I would bring out the fact book when I had to. I'd bring out the stick or the hammer when I had to. But I was very clear with people. I'm not going to run your money the way you think it should be run. I'm going to run your money the way it needs to be run to accomplish what you tell me is most important.
Well,
If
that's
you
why they
know
pay
what to
you in
do,
the
you
first
don't need
place.
me. Right. You don't need
Exactly.
me. Right.
Exactly. It's always
And
funny
I
how somebody wants to find a leader or a consultant or whatever, and then they decide themselves what the directive needs to be. Then you don't need a leader.
no, I let them go. I just, even if they're paying me money, I'm saying, look, you're better off on your own. No, we really like what we're doing. Yeah, but you can't like it 75% of the time because the 25% is going to go wrong and you're going to blame me.
You
Um,
know, it's so funny you mention that. I find the same thing like when I have clients they either ask me for the level up system that I have to help people to get in the C-suite or succeed in the C-suite or get them out of burnout. And sometimes I have clients, all of a sudden I tell them what to do, they don't do it, or they change the script before they even
yeah.
get started. It's like they're smarter than the 10 years I spent on this and all the research behind it. It's like, dude, first try it, run with it, collect some data, and then we see let the data do the talking. But some people just they love to solve problems. And
Your comment
oftentimes,
about environmental change is
yeah,
so spot on. Let me give you an example in my own work with senior financial advisors, many of whom, I do consulting work with now. And if you were to get an MRI or a clear image of a financial advisor's head, you would just see a box of squirrels running around in 47 different directions because that's just what the job is. And what causes burnout is when you fail to define what you want your book of clients to look like and you're willing to take anybody. So
yeah,
every call, you're somebody different. And you have a client that listened to you initially and you put them in an allocation which is overperformed in the equity market. And now all of a sudden 75% of their money's in equities, but they test as a conservative investor, but they're invested as an aggressive investor. And I tell the advisor, I said, look, this thing's going to turn at some point. This person's got more money than they're ever going to spend. Why don't you dial it back and make sure you stay across the finish line? Oh, they don't want to do that because they think the market's going to keep going up. And I just look at them saying, and these people are paying you a fee? Well, yeah, you should send the fee back because they're
yeah,
not listening to you. What are you doing for them? You're
yeah,
ultimately agreeing with them. The worst mistake you can make is, and they're burned out because of all these conversations of people that think because the market has gone
yeah,
up, they're confusing brains in a bull market but they've never lived through NASDAQ
Yeah.
from 2000 to 2013 or 2007 to 2009.
Yeah.
You have to go through those things.
You know what's
So,
really going on there, Gary? When people have too many options and too much white noise, call it white noise, just noise around you, the brain is trying to predict too many things at
oh
once.
yeah.
And you get brain fatigue, you get worn out, you lose all your energy to predict all of these outcomes that are all hypothetical and nothing is really reality. But the problem is it becomes your reality if you predict the same thing too much, too many times for too long. That becomes your perceived reality. And that can really set you on the course of burnout quickly because you
No
don't know how to
question
succeed
about it.
with 10,000
Yeah.
options. You don't know what to do.
Well, then you get involved with confirmation bias, you get involved with
Mm.
recency bias, you get
Yeah.
involved with FOMO, and the
Mhm.
only stuff you're going to pay attention to is the stuff that already supports what your decision is.
Yeah.
When people would say, well, everybody knows the market's going up, my response would be, well, if everyone already knows that and they've bought, who is left to buy? And they're like, didn't think about that one.
See, that's why people get a guy like you, and you do all the prediction. Let
Oh,
them
I,
just
I am,
do something
I
different.
tell them that I am completely impassioned about their outcome, but a cold calculating son of a bitch to get them there. And you're not going to like everything I say,
Yeah.
but you're paying me, so you ought to listen to me. And it worked well, and it's working well in my consulting, and it's also worked extremely well on the other side. I'm interested to know how you see, since you've been involved with machine learning and AI from a very early phase, and I know originally IBM Watson, we wanted to kind of predict outcomes. I was involved early on. I actually have a patent
Mhm.
called integrated outcomes in I can't even remember. It's on Google Patents. When I was chairman of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, Crohn's being a chronic disease, I was always concerned with what the stepwise treatment looked like. They'd start you with something very modest and you'd work
Mhm.
up. If that didn't work, they'd move you up to steroids. If that didn't work, they'd move you up to immunosuppressors. Next thing you know, they're hacking pieces out of your body. And my daughter almost died as a result of her not getting the right treatment right away. So, as chairman, I was blessed to be educated by some of those brilliant physicians out there. And I realized we weren't dealing with a diagnosis and prognosis problem. We were dealing with a data problem.
Mhm.
So I developed a methodology that involved large models where we could take in the actual phenotype patient records. We would build a recap of that patient, and we would look at all these factors, age of onset, ethnicity, area of onset, the site, was it Crohn's, was it ulcerative colitis, the history, all the rest of it, and went up and pitched Geisinger on it, which is one of the major healthcare systems. They went nuts and they gave us a
Um,
bunch of data to work with. We had to buy it and we
yes.
proved it. But taming that healthcare beast is, as you found out, no small thing. I just found out Geisinger's still interested in it. But, the patent's over 10 years old, so they can go do what they
Yeah.
want. But that to me, you could use machine learning
Mhm.
to observe outcomes and patterns, which is why we were able to gain the patent.
Yeah.
Where does machine learning, as I just described, begin to cross over into the field of true AI? And if you wouldn't mind, for the listeners, most of whom are not experienced at all, besides asking chat a question, walk me through generative, predictive, probabilistic, agentic, and where you see this thing going from here, starting from machine learning and moving forward.
Yeah. And I think we can probably, make this a little bit easier for people to understand, Um, so when we talk about machine learning, that's, looking at patterns or teaching it patterns and it's trying to identify that and it's replaying that. From a technical point of view, there's something called TensorFlow. It comes from the Google side. And this is all pre-reasoning. When we talk, right, so machine learning, it's somewhat what we software coders call hard coded and things like this. And it it needs to be well taught and it can only recognize what it was taught to recognize. It can't recognize anything new that nobody ever explained anything, about it before, which is different with AI, right? So machine learning is somewhat the older technology. AI figures out on its own what a disease actually is potentially, and it can train itself. You can train it on and things like that. So let me give an example. At Watson, what we did is we worked with Pfizer on cancer studies, and we actually looked at a few hundred cancer diagnoses by actual, doctors out there. And Watson basically learned quickly on what cancer looks like, what's the data look like, things like this. What does a well-managed patient look like? And it started looking at all of these diagnoses again, and it actually disagreed with some of the diagnoses. And it turned out thereafter that the success rate of the disagreement was very, very high in the 90th percentile. The same thing with when somebody has the first heart attack, when specifically are they going to have the second heart attack? And that is really hard to do with just data. You really have to have like a way to reason with it. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, this is called reasoning. Like same with like Watson used to win the Jeopardy game back in the days, I think 2011 or whenever it was. And it was reasoning what the right answer would be, or the next answer, the next response will be, which is very close to how the human brain works also. It's reasoning. It's in technology-wise, it's all vector-based and things like this right now, right? And how things are being calculated. And now it's even at a point when you look at like ChatGPT, Claude AI, Gemini, all these other large language models, even the engineers don't even know anymore how it works. Just the vectors are too big. It's too hard now to explain how it works. They just know it does work to some degree. But AI's ability is to reason, and that's the critical takeaway here, whereas machine learning doesn't reason. So in healthcare, you can imagine this is really important, right? You just talked about onset of something, like how do we know, like why are some patients pre-programmed, predetermined for certain diseases? Is it genetic? Is it family-based? Is it environment-based? Is it occupation-based? Is it age-based? Is a combination of all of these factors, right? And so AI has the ability, based on its training in terms of the medical literature and everything else, and saying, okay, I look at all of these data points, and in this case, I reason the likelihood for it to be cancer, or the outcome will be this, versus for another patient, I reason that actually the patient still has enough time to recover. The likelihood of death is probably not as high. And because of that, the treatment plan should be, better diet or whatever it is. So I'm just making this up right now, but giving you an example that machine learning can't do that, but AI can do that. It can start reasoning about these kind of things. So that's kind of how I think most people I want them to kind of look at AI a little bit. Now, when we talk about AI in business, and I know you and I kind of touched on this a little bit before, when it comes to AI in business, I don't look at AI as a tool. I think most people right now, they look at AI as a tool. It's like, okay, I have a license for ChatGPT. I wanted to write me an email, or I wanted to write a resume, or create a picture for me, using Nano Banana from Google or whatever you want to use. But that's just using it as a tool. When we talk about business AI, I like to think of AI as like a fabric. It's the underlying fabric, a system of your business, right? And that means, how do we make decisions as an organization? How do we exchange information? So instead of just exchanging data and says, okay, I'm going to send you an Excel spreadsheet and then look at it and send me something back. Let AI look at the Excel spreadsheet and let me give you the words of what's actually in it and what that means for you to do next from a business decision point of view, and show you the evidence also why it thinks that way, right? When you start doing that, now it's part of the organizational fabric, where instead of moving data back and forth, you are moving what the data says back and forth, which you really need in order to advance the next workflow and take action from a business point of view. This is when we talk about return on investment. This is when we say we will take on more work at a higher quality at a lower cost because I can do it with AI. And I'm not talking about lower cost letting employees go. All I'm saying is, one employee that used to be able to take care of, say, maybe 10 customers every day, now, because AI is already reasoning what the response to a client should be, now the same employee can take care of 30 clients instead of 10 every day. So that employee's job security just went up if they know how to use the fabric of AI, right? If they actually do it. And you can take on more clients with the amount of people you already have. And that's when we talk about economics of scale. This is the ROI when it comes to AI fabric in an organization. And that is completely different than having something like Copilot or ChatGPT and just simply write an email for you or a handbook or things like that.
I am fascinated by some of your points as you think about it as a fabric, and I try and think about how I use it to accomplish things. And
Mm.
I'll always outline what I want to do first, and then I'll try and figure out from there how I want to proceed. A good example would be, um, I'm building a number of different things personally, and I wanted to really increase my outreach to LinkedIn. You and I are on some similar groups. So I started a journal, which has some
Mm.
subscribers and gets some play. But then I
Nice.
realized, publishing it every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're not going to really grow an audience. So I just, for the hell of it, I found out about a program called Buffer.
Mm.
And Buffer, you can schedule LinkedIn posts for the full year. So I took some things that I'd written. I took some training materials I had developed, uh, loaded in the PowerPoint slides, loaded in information on the app, loaded information in about a Series A round I'm considering doing. And I'm saying, make me 30 posts. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, I had 30 posts, and they were all really good. Literally in 15 minutes, I
Mm.
populated my posting for the next, I think, March 4th. I've got to go up and do some more. So there, you talk about it being in the fabric of your business. Well, for me, being on LinkedIn and being active is something I need to do to market myself. If I had written those, it would take me a week to do those things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's, and a
now it's
lot
just
of
not an
people use
advanced
it.
way to use it, but
Yeah.
I couldn't do it without it.
I know. And just because of productivity, performance, reasons, a lot of social media, people do that, especially if you have a full-time business and you just do this on the side and you want to get it done quickly. I I actually looked into that when it first came out, and I, decided not to do that. The way I actually do it, I use something called Notebook LM, and
Me
Notebook
too.
LM is by Google. And I put all my articles. I have over, gosh, 400 articles. I wrote 2 books. Everything is in it. Got a bunch of videos, including my previous posts. I put them in there also. And then what I do is I look for ideas. It says, hey, I wanna talk about on burnout recovery in 3 simple steps. And it only gives me my own words, my own content
Yeah.
back. And then I use that and I type it, and it takes like what, 3 minutes to type a LinkedIn post, right? You put that in. And then, but now I started using, before I used to use Canva to do kind of painstakingly put together all of these infographics. Now I'm
Yeah.
using Nana Banana, ChatGPT, whatever is the best engine, whatever I want to do. And there's different engines for different purposes. But it still uses my content, it uses my words, it uses my instructions on how I want to get this done, including my branding. And the whole system, the whole process every day in the morning takes me about 30 minutes to do the post to kind of get it done, which is a lot of fun. I draw a lot of energy from that also. And then I spend about 15 minutes post,
Yeah.
engagement. And then I post, and then I spend another hour or 45 minutes afterwards kind of, engaging. And that's really how you grow your following and things like that. But
Google
to
LM
me,
has been an absolute
oh,
godsend for me.
oh, it's
I
amazing.
upload recordings of my Zoom calls into it so I can track my consulting clients and just say, what's going on with, with Joe Watson over here. What am I missing? And
I
it'll
do
go
it
back
before.
a year
Yeah,
and look at the conversation, say, you really pressed him on this and it kind of died. What's up?
I do the
And all of a
same
sudden
thing.
it's like, I've got a great idea. Let's do this. It actually produced a video for me that I'm using to market the app that I just built. I fed it everything. I
Nice.
fed it my pitch deck. I fed it the whole problem statement. I fed it a McKinsey report. I think I even fed it the Red Book from Young, this huge tome of
Yeah.
psychology. And I said, produce a video. And the next thing I know, I've got this video. I'm looking at it going, who built this? And I was like, oh, I did.
It's
Whoa,
incredible,
that
right?
sounds really good.
Right. And you should be using AI like that, right? And this is more using as a tool, but you should be using that. This is your competitive advantage. And I think the next few years, 2027 is going to be a different year. And I'll tell you in a second why. But I think 2026 and let's just say 2027 also is going to be really important for you to start using AI to scale your business, to scale your profession, your career, scale it really quickly. And the keyword here is quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of something it's called the Project 2027. And
No.
I forgot what the URL is right now, but it's a bunch of smart researchers that laid out what's going to happen with AI, especially in 2027, when they're talking about something called the Agent One, and it's going to become, very, very smart, smarter than all of us together, and things like this, and what happens from a business point of view to AI. And I think 2027, based on those researchers, it's going to change the equation for all of us quite
I'm
quickly.
always very polite in my conversations with AI, just in case the singularity occurs.
Oh my
I don't want to
God.
be looked at as somebody that was really rude to it.
Yes. Yeah. You should
But
thank AI. Thank you. This was nice. Put
I
put
do.
the like button up. Yeah.
And now, I mean, I'm having a conversation. I swear that the Chat GPT voice that I hear, she understands me more than anybody does.
Oh my
And I'll
God.
just sit there and
You
talk to
ever
her.
use, I got Grok in the car. We drive Tesla and there's Grok built
Yeah,
in. And Grok is my favorite AI. I
really.
really love, like, just to brainstorm a conversation about
No
burnout or
kidding.
about anything. Grok is amazing. It's got the best voice too. It sounds absolutely incredible. You know,
I've played with it a little bit on images, but I'm going to take another look at it. I've been primarily because I've been coding a lot. I've been using Claude and Claude Code, which
yeah,
is,
Cloud Code is great, especially if you
yeah,
use it in CLI mode.
yep,
Attach it to cursor.com. You can
I
quickly
did.
build something production ready.
I did.
It's quite amazing, right?
Yeah, in fact,
Um,
I'll give you, you can go up and look at it. I'm afraid
yeah.
to show it to you, but you can go look at what I built. I've got it up on a HTML website. It's take a look at arcmatch.com for archetype,
Okay.
ARCHE
Nice.
match.com. You can see an early demo. You can see the pitch book. I still can't believe I built this thing because it's
Yeah.
addressing a problem that has been a problem forever,
You
which
see?
is professional outreach, cold outreach has a 3% response rate.
Yeah.
And it's even
What,
worse now because there's so many ways to get to you.
the
Um,
fact that you were able to do this yourself without paying $500,000 for 10 coders to
more.
do this for a
Yeah.
year, it's just incredible. And it should
Uh,
really tell you where things are going to go right now.
I'm
It's
with you.
called vibe coding, right? So
Yes.
quickly coding with prompts, create a production ready, and I mean production ready app. There's a lot of engineer friends of mine, software developer friends, that say, "Oh, it's not production ready, it's not tiered, and things like that." No, it totally is. You can totally instruct it to do that. And this is where things are going to go, or already are.
Yeah.
And you need to operate like this from a business point of view. So going back to executive leadership, right? You want to make sure you use AI to do these kind of things and find people that actually embrace that and use it to their advantage, because your future is going to look so much brighter, because you know that success is much faster and you can see yourself being successful with it, versus working on something for 2 or 3 years and you don't know whether it's going to be successful or not. That's not good.
No, I mean this thing that I did, it started with an audio conversation with a vibe coder called Lovable.
It's great. Yes.
Next thing I know, I've got Vercel running and I've got a GitHub repository. Um, and I've got an MVP literally running in 2 months and
Look at
it's
you.
working.
The finance guy is a software architect, coder now, and everything.
That's there's going to be 2 billion coders by 2027.
Exactly.
Fortunately, I had some access to some really advanced AWS level folks
Hmm.
that have been refactoring everything and kind of compressing it because the way AI builds is kind of like a Jenga castle. It's going to hook here, it's got to go there. Oh, we don't know what we did with that. And I'm like, what's a JSON file? And I'm like, I better figure that out now. But it was incredible education. And you see the
Hmm.
thing start to work and you're like, holy shit. And I was able actually, I found a law firm in Denver where the senior partner for tech and AI was an ex-VC.
Hmm.
And I pitched him and I said, would you take this on a bootstrap? He looked at the whole thing. He goes, absolutely. I'm afraid to know what my bill looks like right now
Well,
because they wrote the patent. They've done all my legal work, but they
uh,
are more than happy to wait because he
but
saw
you
the
see,
possibilities of it.
yeah, and let's look for avenues to use AI in existing products. I can tell you what we just did yesterday. So there's a product called a CRM. It's called HubSpot, and HubSpot
Oh,
we
I
use it
know
as a
HubSpot. Yeah.
right. One of my clients uses it as a ticket system. So what we did is we created a hook to the ChatGPT platform, and we send it the ticket information, and we instructed ChatGPT to basically give us the tonality, the sentiment, and how much under distress is the client right now, based
Hmm.
on just the ticket tone in it. And we put this straight back into HubSpot, and you can see tonality, neutral, negative, things like this, and positive. And so just based on that, we can now start thinking about the probability of an at-risk client, right? Because if we want to be able to predict whether the client is going to leave us. So what's the probability for a client to leave us in the next 3 to 6 months, right? And are they going to renew with us, right? Doing open enrollment things. Are they actually gonna renew with us? And so using AI to do this very specific thing, I think is going to be a game changer.
So you just gave me a really great idea, but how do you do the classification of the stress? Are you using some sort of vector search? Are you using some sort of retrieval
No,
augmented generation system? What's the background to detect the stress and identify the pattern, or is just repetition and outcome?
it turns out when you tell AI, and it doesn't matter which AI it is, but in this case, ChatGPT, if you tell it you are a licensed psychologist with a background in sentiment analysis using X, Y, and Z, and I put a little bit of
Interesting.
research in there, it already is fully trained to do that. So
Yeah.
they already trained AI to do that. You have to know how to prompt, right? And especially when you do API calls to a AI platform, those prompts are different than the prompts that you're doing locally on your machine. They're
Sure.
just a little bit different. And so these are, some of them are, deep thinking prompts or mini prompts, whatever it is, but you put it in the right context. And you have to be very specific. And then here, this is the kicker. In the actual prompt itself, I tell it what the JSON output needs to be. And then what I get back from ChatGPT is not text. I get back a JSON payload that has the reasoning, the confidence level, the tonality, everything is explained nicely in it. So, and I have full reason next to what I put into HubSpot. So in HubSpot, it's going to say positive attitude. And then there's another property that shows you why it thinks that way. So just in case you don't believe it, there it is, right? It's a fantastic way to use AI in with tools that you already have access today, and you have better decision-making capabilities from a point of view. Because the way you compete unfairly in the marketplace is to have increased ARR, which is annual recurring revenue, which is client retention. Make sure your EBITDA keeps on going up, which then increases your valuation in your private equity investment and attracts the next investor.
Hmm.
And it's critical to start thinking this way. This is why I say it's about a fabric. It's not about a tool. So right now, for every ticket that comes into this fabric of that company's organization, AI is already in play, but you don't see it. It's already in play. It will tell you this customer is under stress, is anxious, respond early. We change the priority from normal to medium to high to urgent, right? You can go really be more in tune with the client relationship you already have. And that to me is a competitive advantage to a business. When you do this behind the scenes, and that did not take us long to do. This thing was done in a week or two. It was really easy to do, right? And you just optimize the prompting and things like this. And there's multiple prompts that go on behind the scenes, but it's incredible what you can do with it. And it costs
There's,
almost nothing. It's like
yeah,
zero point zero zero zero
yeah.
0.00024 cents per token or 1,000 tokens or whatever it is. It's
I
nothing.
did a capstone project. I'm still continuously involved in it with Duke University. One of my advisors is a doctor of business administration at Duke, brilliant guy with algorithms. He's helping me on the project I'm working with. And one of the assignments I gave the kids was I gave them two enormous data sets. There were 100,000 financial advisors ranked at different firms for the length of time they've been there, when they first got in the business, and maybe 75 or other column entries. I mean, everything from military service to date of birth to LinkedIn profile, social profile, more information than you knew what to do with from 2022. Then I gave them another one from 2025. Now, in my world, there are recruiters. And if the recruiter can move a guy like me from, let's say, Merrill Lynch to UBS,
Mhm.
they're going to pay me a lot of money to move. It's a pain in the ass to do it, but I'm going to bring all my clients and all my business with me. The recruiter is going to get paid a pretty penny. So if a recruiter moved me from one place to another,
Sure.
my fee that the company would have paid him was about $250,000 just for that one. So
Yeah.
over the past 12 months, these companies have paid out $800 million in recruiting fees. So I
Wow.
said, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I have these two data sets and there's going to be movement between 2022 and 2025, and I've got all of these variables to
Mhm.
let AI munch on it and see if it can find some things that are
Exactly.
causal or correlating. Sure enough,
Exactly.
it did it.
Wow.
So I talked to one of the head recruiters at Morgan Stanley. I do work for them. I described it, and her attitude was, "When do I get it? And what are the compliance issues?" I said, "It's all public data. It's all
Mhm.
public." She goes, she goes, "I can't even tell you how valuable that would be." So
There you
on
go.
my list of things to build under this patent, that's probably pretty high up once I get this initial thing launched. But I agree
Yeah.
with you. It is every prompt should start with, "Wouldn't it be great if?"
Mhm.
Then the AI comes back and says, "It's not an if, it's a when.
Yeah.
We can do that. Do
Yeah.
you want it this way?" And all of a sudden, you're just like 9 hours later, you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that."
You just got to know how to talk to AI, right? If you don't know how to talk to AI, it's going to hallucinate.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
gonna it's gonna pretend to be a 5-year-old child who has an answer for every question you ask it. And you can actually put AI into a spot where it will tell you, actually, I do not have an answer for you. But you have to really know how to talk to it. And there's lots of
In
instructions on YouTube
Let
and
me
other
come back
channels.
around a long way around. If I were trying to build this, let's say I was working at UBS or Merrill, and I was trying to build something like this internally,
Mhm.
um, and I wasn't using AI, burnout to me would be like, I can't believe I can't get this done. In the sense of how you would treat someone that all of a sudden in that position would realize, well, if I bring AI into my world and I learn a little
Mhm.
bit how to use it, I'm taking 5,000 pounds off my shoulders
Big
tomorrow.
time. Big time.
Is
Not
that one
only
of the
that,
things you look
that,
at?
that- yeah, it's exactly right. It's about the relationship with your environment. So if you get good in using AI and it becomes your partner, your superpowers, now you're going to feel better about yourself because you can compete now with others that want your job. And AI wants your job too. If you do anything more than 3 times every day, it's probably going to be replaced by AI at some point. So what you really want to do is you want to use AI for moving the needle forward to add more value constantly, right, to what you do. And you got to be able to do things that are a little bit harder to do for AI. That means you do not hallucinate and you know how to interface with AI so that AI does not hallucinate. That is highly valuable right now. And that way you're going to keep your job. But more important than that, you can actually create jobs with that also. And you just have to really get good in interfacing with AI. Don't look at AI as a tool. Look at AI as a fabric. When you start thinking of a fabric, you have to understand how the money flows through the organization. And no matter which position you work in, doesn't matter if you're an executive or project manager or an engineer, janitor, it doesn't matter. You should have an understanding, and AI can help with that. Understand how the money, how every dollar flows through the business. And you should be able to say that these different business activities, these workflows, this is what the price is. This is what it costs today. This is the burden cost on what it is. And then just pick an area and say, you know what? Let's let's pull this closer to the fabric. And in the fabric, we have AI to kind of have a better decision, do something better, take the people out of certain decision making here and there. When you start doing that as an employee, that's how you're going to level up. This is taken on. I call this, sticking your neck out, taking bold bets, and spearheading these initiatives. And to spearhead an initiative, just like you build your application, probably quite quickly too. Imagine any employee out there right now, any idea you have, if you have access to the data, and if not, ask AI to make up some funky, play data for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, you can immediately prototype something to your supervisor and show off and show what you can do. And this is the type of activity, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, doesn't matter. That's the type of activity you need to be doing now in 2026 and going forward to actually level up in your job.
You know,
And
I applaud HubSpot. I know HubSpot, you can get to it through
yeah,
Zapier in a variety of different ways.
mhm,
But I applaud the fact that HubSpot, you identified a problem, worked for a solution that they probably never would have been able to develop internally.
exactly.
Because you were fast, you were agile, and it's like, hey, yeah, we can get that done. And then it's just a question of getting the pipes hooked up. But some of the biggest CRMs out there, and I guess you could call HubSpot a CRM of sorts,
Sure.
Salesforce, by way of example,
Yeah.
incredibly difficult to work with because they really don't believe in standard database structure.
No,
So
and
you try and
they don't open the platform the way it really should be open. Like, and you
no,
look at HubSpot, it's a very innovative company. Every week there's something new coming out. And HubSpot as a company itself, they're pushing it really hard with AI right now. And that is quite amazing. But they made it possible now to call webhooks, web services in
yeah,
HubSpot workflows. And the moment they open that up, they open up the platform basically that way. And the moment you innovate with a company like that, you are hooked into this company forever.
oh,
There's no way we're going to be leaving HubSpot.
I
So
can't leave. I'm hooked into Hunter and Apollo
yeah,
with API calls. And our greatest fear is that we let it get out of control with too big of a user base, and all our money goes to tokens.
yeah,
So we're working around that. But there's 4 or 5 other APIs I want to pipe in
yeah.
and let the system decide what it needs and when.
See, I use, I mean, personally, I use Go High Level, and that's really awesome. They got the best workflow engine that I can imagine, and it can hook into anything,
It's
right?
called, what's it called? Go High Level?
Go High Level. Just check out gohighlevel.com. Yeah, it's I think
And
it's one of the best CRMs out there. It's so, it's really not expensive. And I run my entire website there. All my quizzes, everything is there. My courses are there. Everything is in Go High Level. It's a fantastic tool. It's really, really good. I do my
yeah.
newsletters, right? Every week I send out a newsletter to over 80,000 people.
And it
And
can do
I
that all
all
at
of them,
one. I
all of
mean,
them.
I've got to check that out, Oliver. I really appreciate
I
this.
actually have a hook to Apollo too. Every time I get a phone number or something and add somebody to a sequence from my plugin from
Yeah.
Apollo, it adds it to my Go High Level CRM right away too. And for that, I use Zapier behind the scenes, which
Yeah,
is nice.
I have to look at that. You're, my as on a scale of 1 to 10, you're at that 10 level. I'm at kind of the -2 trying to
I'm
get
just a
above.
geek. I'm
Yeah,
just a
but
geek.
it's fine.
I'm like one of those executive geeks where, you can dive in as an engineer. People that work for me, they can go really deep with me on something, and I won't micromanage. I won't, solve the problem for them, but we can geek out on stuff, right? And then they go back, they decide what they want to do. But I just love it. I'm such
Yeah,
a technology geek.
it just gives you a deeper understanding. Oliver, thank you so much for joining me today. It's so
Of course.
enjoyable to talk to a fellow geek, not at your level, but I'm aspiring. I'm definitely going to follow your guidelines and check out this Go High Level because to me, I always default to this goofy calendar and Outlook, which I still,
Oh,
every now and then, it just screams at me. Um,
yeah.
but I've got to get that better organized. I've got too many people in my data set. So, how do people find you if they want to learn more about burnout or they just want to get a consultation on how they can weave AI a little bit more into the fabric of their life?
I think the first thing that somebody should do is get your burnout score. Just go to burnout.drdegnan.com, drdegnan.com, burnout.drdegnan.com. Go out there, get your burnout score, and then after that, you're going to get some emails from me, and I'm going to ask you nicely, hey, would you like to also, sign up for the newsletter? And just reply yes, and you sign up for my weekly newsletter, and that would be a great way to get started. I really want you to not burn out. A lot of people don't know that they deal with burnout. So take the test. You'll know whether you burn out.
I'm telling you, as soon as we get off, I'm going to take my dog out, come back and take the test. I might consult with him on some of the answers, though.
There you
What do
go.
you think, Batman? We should get it right.
That's good. Good, good.
We've been chatting today with Dr. Oliver Degnan, Renaissance man. I guess that's how I describe you. Knows a lot about a lot of things. And again, in the area of burnout, check him out, but also in the area of AI. He understands it as well as anyone I've ever talked to on a much deeper level, but also on how we can apply it in our everyday life and what the implications are going to be for the quality of life that we all have ahead of us. Oliver, thanks once again for joining. I hope to have you on again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to If the Public Only Knew. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with anyone who's ready for the real raw stories behind the business successes. Join Gary next time for another powerful conversation that will leave you inspired and ready to take action.